Really, a deck like Solar Flare probably had maybe 4 people playing it in day 2.
So we're going to move on to our match here. We have Todd Anderson there on the left. He is fighting with Reanimator, as many of the players on Team SCG Blue decided to do. On the right, you have national champion Ali Aintrazi playing Rug Delver, which is a traditional deck for Ali, which is not what he traditionally goes for.
No, but his list is a bit different than things we've seen in the past. I mean, the Rug Delver decks have really had to start playing a lot of disruption now because of the Reanimator deck. This has become a Gristlebrand format, and as a result, you have people who have Stifle and Spell Pierce and Daze and Force of Will to go with your Ponders and your Brainstorms. So you have all of this disruption, and if you can just back up an early one-drop, something like a Delver of Secrets or a Nimble Mongoose, with enough disruption, then you can steal the game out from under them. And if you can get this Reanimator deck down to 7 life, you've almost won.
Yeah. Now, the flip side of that is Ollie has a lot of dead cards game 1. He has Forked Bolts, he has Lightning Bolts, and it's very tough to get into a situation where Stifle is a good card. There's a couple ways to do it. You can actually Stifle and Animate Dead trigger. This is a very important interaction that I'm sure he knows about, but not a lot of people are. Animate Dead, a very weird card. We may try and get a graphic of Animate Dead for you in a moment, just so that we can sort of go over the intricacies of that card, because it's one of those cards that makes sense in a fantasy setting, but just does not translate to Magic rules.
If you want to understand how Animate Dead works and what it actually does, you should get copies of Animate Dead from the grave.
Graveborn.
Graveborn, yes.
Right, the ones that have the little skulls on them. Little sportsmanship there from Todd and Ollie. Shaking hands, they know each other.
Text.
Yes.
And it's actually somewhat hilarious when you read the text on a Graveborn.
Are we going to get the Graveborn one up? We don't have the Graveborn one. I'll try and look it up online so we can get the official Oracle text.
These two players are very strong. Stifle can also be used to counter a Gristlebrand activation, which is quite good because it's going to force Todd to pay more life, and there are going to be very few situations where Todd has more than 14 life.
Right.
At the stage of the game where he would have something like that in play against Ollie. And, I mean, Ollie's playing a deck that has bolts, so it's going to be really tough for Todd to activate a Gristlebrand more than once, so 1 Stifle should be good enough.
Now, Todd has 4 Reanimate, 4 Animate Dead, 1 Exhume as his reanimation package. The cards he's attempting to reanimate, he has 4 Gristlebrand, which, that's the normal one when you're doing careful study or something like that. But when you entomb, that's the go-to. If you can turn 1 Entomb, you typically go get the Gristlebrand. He has a couple of other one-ofs, Elish Norn, Grand Cenobite.
Very good against many of the decks in the format,
including
playing as a Goblin's opponent, and you Elish Norn, the game is over.
Pretty much. Blazing Archon, particularly good against Dredge. They're pretty much cold to a Blazing Archon, unless they have Flayer of the Hatebound after sideboard. And then he has a Tidespout Tyrant. Now, Tidespout Tyrant is a reanimation target we haven't seen a ton of.
It's a pretty old card.
Yeah, it's Dissension. It's a Ravnica block. It's a 5/5 flying guy for 8 mana. I guess you don't really care.
3 blue.
I guess you don't really care how much it costs if you're reanimating it. But whenever you cast a spell, you may return target permanent to its owner's hand. Particularly good against the Sneak and Show decks that have the giant spaghetti monster. Eldrazi. Emrakul. I was blanking on the name for a second. The Eon's Torn.
Yes.
If you would like
flying
to,
spaghetti monster.
Right,
I think that's kind of the that's how Pastafarians refer to it.
Exactly. If you would like to see an impression of that, you should go talk to Caitlin Lindbergh. She did the Eldrazi dance when she topped 64 with Hypergenesis whenever she beat Jerry and all of her opponents. So we're going to start off this game with Ali Aintrazi. You can see him there on the right. He pondered, kept them, and he's going to put, looks like a Spell Snare in his hand with Daze, Wasteland, and another dual land among those in his hand with another Ponder. Todd has Underground Sea Island, Thoughtseize, Reanimate. He's going to Thoughtseize Ali Aintrazi, which he's going to get dazed. He also has Animate Dead in his hand, among other things. Entomb, I think, is something that's that I saw. Ollie Wastelands Todd's land.
Yep, now a Marsh Flats from Todd. That's going to be his only remaining way to get black mana.
Yep.
It chooses to go with the island instead.
So that he can keep lands on board. That's Brainstorm, Fetch Land, Reanimate. I'm not sure that he's going to keep that. It does have a Fetch Land in it, so...
It seems unlikely. He's already...
Oh, he is going to keep
okay.
it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, it has a Brainstorm, and he has a Fetch Land, and he has another Fetch Land, so...
Sure.
I guess it would be unreasonable to not keep any Brainstorm, Fetch Lands, Ponder. If you ponder to a Brainstorm and a Fetch Land, you're going to keep it.
Pretty much.
Fun fact. Alright, so Todd mulling over his options here. Can't actually go off this turn, but next turn he'll be able to. Might pass the turn and try to go for an Entomb now on Ollie's end step. Definitely going to Brainstorm before he does anything else, though. Ollie does not have a way to apply pressure, so he's strictly playing a control game right now.
Yeah, which is, I think, is probably a losing proposition for Ollie. He's going to probably need to get a clock on the board at some point. Otherwise, he's going to have to counter literally every spell that Todd plays. Ooh, this is going to get stifled. So he's stifled a Fetch Land. Todd does have another land, of course.
Yep.
The old main phase Brainstorm with a Fetch Land. He's going to keep... There's a Gristlebrand in there. Looks like it's going to go back on top of his library.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't want it in his hand. He has an Entomb. He doesn't have any way to discard it. He might keep the Gristlebrand in hand solely for the redraw of Careful Study, but it's unlikely.
So he put Reanimate Grizzlebrand back in his library.
Going to grab himself that basic swamp there.
Swamp.
Nice unhinged land.
He does have 2 islands and 1 swamp that are wasteland proof from Ollie's. Ollie does have a Life from the Loam that he can regrow his wastelands with.
Not going to be relevant at this point because of the 2 basics on Todd's end. Todd doesn't really need more than 2 mana to operate.
Todd's going to Entomb a Gristlebrand.
And things have gotten really rough for Ollie because Todd has so many Reanimate effects in his hand that it's going to be really tough for Ollie to battle through.
So many that he even put 1 back, so... This is going to be rough. This is going to be a rough time for Ollie. There's the Gristlebrand.
Matthew Carlson
in the
bin.
Ollie looks at a ponder of Stifle, Delver of Secrets, and Lightning Bolt to go with his Stifle, Force of Will, and Brainstorm in hand. Todd's going to put his relevant zone in front now. His in-play zone, not so relevant. So we're going to spread things out.
For the purpose of paying for Spell Pierces and Dazes.
Sure. But we're gonna. It's a graveyard-based deck. We're gonna put the graveyard up on the pedestal there. Ollie mulling this decision over. He really wants this Delver, I think, to put on some sort of pressure. So he has to keep it, even though there's a Lightning Bolt in there that really is not going to help at all. Passing the turn now to keep Stifle and Brainstorm up. Todd has Exhume, as well as Animate Dead. Exhume, a much simpler card. He also has Reanimate. This is going to allow him to pay for Spell Pierce. Todd was going to go to 11 to put this Grizzlebrand in play. Todd's going to put it in play behind his lands, like Paulo Vitor Dolorosa.
It's always frustrating when people do that. It just makes the cards farther away when you pick them up to read them.
Closer to you, though. I like having the cards closer to me so that I can know what's on my side of the board. I don't know. I don't want to help you and put them closer to you. Put lands in the front, party in the back.
That's what we can call this. When you play your creatures behind your lands.
It's the mullet?
It's the Magic the Gathering mullet.
It's the Magic the Gathering mullet. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, we've added something to the lexicon.
I appreciate that.
We've introduced something to the lexicon, folks. The Magic the Gathering mullet. This is not looking good for Ollie. We're getting
this
swing with the
Grizzlebrand is in
Grizzlebrand.
play.
Yeah, he's going to need 3 lightning bolts, I guess.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, Todd
like,
can
he only
draw
has
a
one
million
bolt,
cards.
He needs to draw into 2 more, and I mean Todd even has the force. So I mean, and Ollie would need to draw a red source, like many red sources, in order to do that. So at this point, the game is pretty much over. So Ollie going for a brainstorm. Todd decides to force that.
Ollie's going to force it back, removing a stifle that is fairly useless. So what is Ollie digging for here? Is he trying to get 3 burn spells? Is that the... Well, he needs...
Well,
he would need
because
red
he has
mana.
no red sources.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Ollie sees the writing on the wall there. Pretty standard way of game 1 happening. Just too many things that Rug Delver has to deal with.
Yeah, and in many ways, Ollie brainstorming there and then forcing the force is less to actually win the game than it is to just make Todd think that he had an out.
Yeah.
Because he didn't.
I have seen some Rug Delver decks running main deck Dismember. I've seen Gristlebrands go down to Dismember Lightning Bolt in game 1. It's not likely, and obviously not possible in Ollie's deck, but it puts the idea in the back of Todd's head that maybe,
maybe this is a
maybe
possibility.
there's a possibility. So sideboarding now.
Yeah.
Todd Anderson has very little he needs to do. His main deck is very well suited to deal with Rug Delver.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to want to bring in the show and tell.
He is going to want to bring in the show and tells because all he's going to bring in sideboard hate.
Yeah, I mean, Surgical Extraction is basically in just about everybody's sideboard nowadays. So, definitely important to have that. I'm surprised we haven't seen any extirpates this weekend.
Yeah,
Yes,
I have been a little bit surprised about that as well.
Surgical Extraction is free. It's a free extirpate, but
you can respond to it.
yeah, extirpate's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm a big extirpate fan.
Now,
Todd is going to bring in the show and tells and City of Traders, you think, to be able to pay
yeah,
for
I
them?
mean, if you're bringing in your show and tells, you usually bring in your City of Traders to go with them.
He has Submerge if he wants. I don't think he'll bring that in here. It's not really necessary.
Yeah, I mean, Submerge is probably more so for like Zoo and Maverick and things that kind of very easy matchups for Todd.
Yes.
But he could conceivably bring it in here. It definitely is it's a free removal spell against Ollie that kills Tarmogoyfs or Delvers. Again, though, Todd is more concerned about what he's trying to do and how to prevent his opponent from stopping him than he is concerned with what his opponent's trying to do.
Right.
So...
he also has an It That Betrays, just so everybody knows, in his sideboard. It That Betrays, one of the underutilized Eldrazi's. It's the one that if an opponent sacrifices permanents, you get them back. That one's a fun one with opponents who have big things as well. So it's a good trump against Grizzlebrands on the other side of the table.
Seems to make sense. It betrays.
It is that betrays. He also has the Coffin Purge tech that all the guys have been running this weekend. That
they Purify
Coffin
the
Purge,
Grave. It's black.
the original Purify the Grave at common from Odyssey. So there's very little. I mean, unless he could theoretically bring in Echoing Truths if he wants to try to bounce something like a Grafdigger's Cage that he expects from Ollie.
No, I don't think he's going to bring those. And I think at this point, Show and Tell and City of Traders are probably what he's going to end up bringing.
I would agree.
And maybe Submerge, depending on how much disruption he thinks he needs. And I think he may go for more disruption in lieu of defenses. Now on the other side of the table, Aintrazi has 2 Gilded Drakes in his sideboard, definitely coming in here. This is their express purpose. Todd may show and tell, but Ollie can put a Gilded Drake into play, and then Ollie will get the Grizzlebrand, and Todd will get the Gilded Drake.
Also, for show and tell, he's probably going to bring in these Pyroblasts, I would imagine.
Definitely bringing in the Pyroblasts. They counter Brainstorms. I mean, they counter Dazes, Ponders, and most importantly, they counter Show and Tells.
They also destroy a Tidespout Tyrant, just in case. Just in case.
It's true.
He's
Surgical
also-
Extraction, an obvious inclusion against a Reanimator deck. Scavenging Ooze, another obvious inclusion. So Ollie looks to have some pretty awesome stuff in his deck for this type of matchup.
Yeah, this should be a much closer game after sideboard.
I I don't think Ali is that big of a dog main deck even. I mean, he didn't have any early pressure, which is what he needs a lot of the time in this matchup. And I mean, when it really comes down to it, if Ali has early pressure, then his disruption works really well against the Griselbrand strategy. But he didn't.
That game, he just didn't have any early pressure.
All right, so this game he will, however. He does have the turn 1 Delver.
Secrets. Todd has the Blazing Archon in his opening hand, along with the Griselbrand. I assume he has a careful study to be able to bin those. He also just drew Show and Tell,
which makes having both those in his hand much better.
Todd has the Singleton Dark Slick Shores in his opener as well, just so for the folks at home want to know that little technology.
Dark Slick Shores, one of the fast lands. And Ali, a bit of a pause there, and then puts the card in his hand. Todd may have a bit of a read that Ali has put something into play that is potentially a pretty big problem for him.
Yeah. Ali does have the Gilded Drake in his hand, so that delay may have tipped Ali's hand a little bit, that he has something tricky up his sleeve.
So Todd did bring in the Submerge.
He's going to Submerge after the flip, but before the draw step.
And that's great timing on that Submerge.
Ali does not have another land, does he?
No, and I mean, that's going to be a pretty big problem.
That's
because
a big problem.
Now he can't keep up with Spell Pierce mana, and...
Little sly grin from Todd Anderson there.
Well, Todd may think he can show and tell him out of this game, but
he will be mistaken.
Problem.
Yep, this is going to be Gilded Drake's time to shine.
Yep.
Ali may daze this.
I don't know.
Yep.
All right, he does choose to daze it. Putting a Gilded Drake in play when they put a Griselbrand into play is pretty good.
3 damage to Todd Anderson from Insectile Aberration.
And continuing to hit for 3 over and over again with that.
Yep, there's another
Todd finding another Submerge. Really good for him.
Ali has a Tarmogoyf now, as well as an extra land, so he'll be able to put on additional pressure if he wishes. More importantly, he'll be able to play 2 1-mana spells. There's another Delver, also.
Yep. Now in for another 3. Todd dropping down to 13 here. Ali with a few different options here can play another Delver of Secrets or leave open extra mana. Choose to leave open extra mana. Todd's going to ponder, looking for some type of careful study or show and tell.
So he's going to keep the Brainstorm and activate a fetch land.
Yeah,
in order to redraw.
Set of cards. Those 2 cards on top of his deck, things that he was not really interested in. Brainstorm, on the other hand, you're always interested in brainstorming.
Everyone's always interested in brainstorming.
I am.
That's the card in Legacy. There was a discussion a few months ago about the possibility of banning Brainstorm in Legacy just because of how ubiquitous it was. Top 8s typically have somewhere... every Legacy top 8 has over 16 Brainstorms.
Every single one?
I'm hard-pressed to think of an event in which there weren't at least 16 Brainstorms in the top 8. All the Show and Tell... And it's, okay, considering recently, all the Show and Tell decks do, all of the Rug decks do. Maverick does not.
That's true.
Burn does not, I suppose, but the Blue-Red Delver decks do. Many of the decks that have performed, and Reanimator does, many of the decks that have performed really well are built on top of Brainstorm, which is no surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I've played in a few Legacy tournaments in my life, probably around 5 or 6, and I've played 4 Brainstorm in every deck I've played. I cannot imagine not playing 4 Brainstorm, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Like, that's how crazy it seems to me.
I can remember one tournament in which you didn't play Brainstorm in Legacy, when we played each other at a side event at Worlds, and you were playing Stacks.
Oh, that's true, at that side event?
Yeah, I was playing
sweet.
Brainstorms in that event.
Did I win? Did you win?
I won that one.
No. That was a bad matchup for me if I lost the die roll.
Yeah.
It was good if I won it. All right, a Submerge from Todd.
That deck
Parting
actually very
Insectile
similar to
Aberration.
Ollie's deck. Just an older version.
It is. It was playing a lot of the same cards.
Yep.
Ollie gonna put that Delver back on top. Shuffle it away.
Submerge in response to the fetch land activation, one of the stronger points of Submerge.
Definitely.
There's Submerge for you. It's a Nemesis uncommon, so you probably didn't open one. Not a very popular set, and it's also very old. But it's from Mercadian Masks block, and so it was part of a free spell themed block. This one's a free spell if your opponent controls a forest and you control an island, which he does, and his opponent also does. Put target creature on top of its owner's library at instant speed. So, very popular card. It was part of a cycle that included also Massacre, which was very popular for a while.
Yes.
Black not seeing a ton of play anymore, so Swamp's not nearly as relevant. Although I've seen it played against Maverick decks somewhat recently. Massacre giving all creatures -2/-2 till end of turn.
That's if they control planes.
If they control planes and you control Swamp, you can cast it for free. Another Show and Tell. Now, is this one going to resolve?
No, I mean, Ollie's going to go for the Spell Pierce, but
And
yeah,
Todd does not have the Force, so... Yeah, he's got the pressure on the board. There's no need to try and get fancy with this Gilded Drake.
All right, so an Insectile Aberration. Going to drop Todd down to 9. Pretty much 6 because Ollie does have his bolt.
Ollie does have a bolt, and this is a Scavenging Ooze, so that's going to shut down any hope for a reanimation plan.
It's going to be tough, especially, yeah. Todd has an Entomb, but whatever he grabs with this Entomb is likely to be removed from the game with Scavenging
Attention
Ooze.
Magic players, if you sign up for the Two-Headed Giant Challenge, the judge with the red clipboard has your
Now,
students for the deck construction.
Entombing here for
Please
Todd.
sign
I think
in and you will
he
show
knows
right
whatever
away.
reanimation target he grabs is just going to get oozed away.
I think this is sort of a vanity thing here to let Ollie know what he has. If he brought in the It That Betrays, it's to show Ollie that it is. It's to show Ollie that he has it, or another one-of target that he can bring in. It's just to show Ollie that it exists, to make Ollie think more about his future plans.
I think wouldn't you want to conceal that? The whole point of having cards your opponent doesn't know about is because they don't
probably.
know about them.
In this matchup, I think so.
So he just grabs a
does grab
Grizzlebrand.
a Grizzlebrand, yes.
Okay. Gonna be tough for him to reanimate this Grizzlebrand right now. Possible, but tough. Basically impossible for this one, but hypothetically could reanimate another one this turn if he had drawn well. It does
If
not
he had
look
drawn
like
a
it,
careful
though.
study, then he could have reanimated a different one. Todd's hand of Gristlebrand, Force of Will, Animate Dead, and Underground Sea. Not looking too good.
You know, and I mean, if he passes the turn, he just loses.
Yep.
End step, Ollie can simply
remove the other Gristlebrand, become a 3/3, attack for 6,
and then bolt for
and
the
then
win.
bolt for the win.
So Ollie gonna tap this Trop, remove that Grizzlebrand from the game, making his Scavenging Ooze a 3/3, putting Ollie up to 19 here. Now he can just attack and win with the bolt.
Nothing really Todd can do here. He's already spent 2 submerges. Not likely that he'd have a third.
And
Todd
bolt during the
expecting the
upkeep.
bolt. Yep.
Ollie wisely not just bolting right away when his opponent's at 3, waiting until his opponent's upkeep. If all of your opponent's lands are untapped, don't lightning bolt them during your turn. Pass the turn, and then if they tap their mana on your end step,
There's less they can do.
then you bolt them. And if they don't tap their mana on your end step, then you bolt them during their upkeep. That way, they've tapped mana on their turn, and it's hindered them in some way.
Absolutely right.
You can grab value out of cards in so many different ways,
Yeah.
and it's important to recognize all of the different modes of a card and all the different uses it has.
One thing about Lightning Bolt in this matchup is I think that it is pretty terrible. But he just didn't have enough stuff to bring in for all the stuff he wanted to take out.
Yeah, I mean, the
Forked Bolt, I think Stifle and Life from Loam all being significantly worse than just 3 damage.
Bolt isn't that bad because it's much better at getting Todd to 7
Sure.
than a lot of other things might be. So I think Bolt could definitely be worse. Sideboarding doesn't become that much different from the play to the draw. Ollie, that game, similarly to Todd in the game before, had more than he needed to win that game. Now, some of the other things that could happen in a match like this. Ollie can Life from the Lone Wasteland lock Todd. Todd doesn't have that many basics, and a lot of the time he gets a draw where he's unable to fetch for one.
And Todd has also not seen the Life from the Loam from Ollie yet, correct?
Correct.
So he
So
doesn't
that's
know he
something that
has
can
it,
happen.
so that's a thing that can... And this is game 3, so there's nothing he can really do about it.
Todd sideboarded in some reactive cards in the form of Submerge. Those may have prevented him from being able to go off additional times,
I think
hopefully
that
forcing through his combo. However, they bought him a lot of turns, and I'm pretty sure they should come in after watching that game. But it's always strange when the combo deck loses after playing multiple reactive cards.
That's right. I think that it's possible that he takes them out on the play just to try and get the combo quicker. But it's tough. Ollie has so few threats that if you can keep them off the board, then you have so much more time. Like he only really has 4 Delver Secrets and 4 Tarmogoyf. Nimble Mongoose does not provide a clock, basically at all, and it probably comes out in this matchup. There are so few things that he can do. Another interesting note, Ollie kept that Gilded Drake in hand the whole game. Todd does not know that Ollie has Gilded Drake.
Yeah, Ollie never had to show that to him. And that's pretty huge against Reanimator when, he was able to win without even showing him the Gilded Drake in hand.
Right.
So, pretty cool stuff.
Another reanimation target that I had seen was, that Todd does not have, that I think Jerry does have, is Hornet Queen, which is a card that he brings in against Maverick, which is 4 colorless green, green, green from Commander. Flying Death Touch, when it comes into play, put 4 1/1 insects with Flying and Death Touch onto the battlefield. Yeah, very difficult for Maverick to deal with 5 Death Touch insects.
It also deals with Emrakul all by itself, basically.
Yes.
Because you can sacrifice a couple lands, a couple of your Hornets, block with a Hornet that has Death Touch, kill the Emrakul, and then still have a Hornet.
Yep, very good point.
It's one of the major things. It's
So
very good.
we're moving into the next game. Todd has both Show and Tell and Exhume in hand, along with Daze.
Yeah, it doesn't look like... Is that an Entomb there, or is that Thoughtseize?
It looks like Thoughtseize.
Okay.
Ollie has a Wasteland for the next turn, most likely. Although he does have a fetch land as well.
Alright, so a Thoughtseize from Todd. Going to reveal a hand of... Yeah, it seems unlikely that Todd can use that Surgical or Extraction right now, so he's going to lose it to this Thoughtseize.
Ollie's hand is many lands. He's got 2 fetches and 3 fetches and 2 wastelands, and Brainstorm Surgical Extraction. So what do you think here? You take the Brainstorm or the Surgical Extraction?
You take the Surgical Extraction. Your Reanimator deck.
Yeah, but if you let Ollie have the Brainstorm, that's basically it's basically an Ancestral recall. Because he's putting a bunch of those lands back.
Okay, fair enough.
So he took the Brainstorm.
So he does go ahead and take the Brainstorm.
Todd can play around this Surgical also. Ollie draws Gilded Drake. Oh my gosh. So Todd saw the hand, did not see the Gilded Drake.
Yeah, Todd does have Show and Tell, so he's
likely
thinking
thinks
that
the
this
show
plan-
is clear to go through. That's not good for Todd.
Attention players. I'd like to congratulate
There's an Entomb.
Truce and Jesse James. Just for signing up in our 2HG event, they have received Gen Con passes for each of them. Congratulations, guys.
Wow. So we just heard that some people received Gen Con passes for entering a side event.
Oh, that's pretty exciting.
Some of the representatives from Gen Con are here giving away Gen Con badges. We're likely going to have one of them in the sideboard either today or tomorrow just to talk about Gen Con. Gen Con, of course, the best 4 games, best 4 days in gaming. And so that's going to occur later this summer. I'm sure many of you know about Gen Con already. So yeah, stay tuned for possible giveaways on air during all the top 8s. Legacy, Standard, and Invitational will have giveaways. And I imagine many of those are going to be Gen Con badges. So stay tuned for that.
During the finals, every event. Now, Todd grabbing a basic land here with this Misty Rainforest, trying to play around Wasteland as much as possible. Did get previous lands wasted here. And grabbing that basic island does hurt Todd quite a bit. Alright, so perhaps going to go for the show and tell. Opts not to.
I think that's probably correct. I think that Todd can sit back, relax, and wait until he has several answers to lots of things. Like play around a Gilded Drake that he might know Ollie has.
Yeah, I mean he's also
Todd also doesn't have anything.
He
also doesn't have anything to put into play with the show and tell yet. It appears.
Oh, that's not a Grizzlebrand?
No, that's a Thoughtseize. No, that's an Entomb or a Thoughtseize.
Okay.
I think that it would be quite all right actually to entomb one of your one-ofs and attempt to reanimate it and let Ollie use his surgical extraction on it. Ollie now does have Force of Will, Daze, Gilded Drake, several other things. Now the jig is going to be up. Todd's going to have a lot more information now. Assuming this resolves, which it
will
won't.
not. Forcing a Thoughtseize. Always a weird feeling getting himmed by a 1-mana spell.
Sure.
But sometimes you need to do it.
He wants to
Ollie
hide that information.
Cannot let Todd know it's in his hand because right now that knowledge is super key.
Absolutely.
Very important to Todd winning this.
Knowledge is power and is significantly more important than either the Daze or the Force of Will. Although Todd knows that something weird is happening if that has happened. So Spell Pierce off the top for Ollie. Still no pressure. So Todd can just sort of sit back. He doesn't have to play this show and tell. He may play This is going to be bad for Todd.
Yes. This will be bad for Todd. Alright, so Ollie cracking a Scalding Tarn.
Ollie is going to play a little bit of a rope-a-dope here to counter, to make Todd tap his lands low. He's going to play the Spell Pierce most likely, possibly playing the Pyroblast actually.
Please come up to the open stage.
Alright, so now
Try and get
Ollie
all
knows.
of the cards out of Todd's hand before he sneaks this Gilded Drake into play. Watching this train in slow motion happen here.
So Ollie now has the option of Pyroblast or Spell Pierce. Pyroblast, the obvious choice with 2 mana open on Todd's end.
So Force and Daze.
Yeah, Todd now forcing that Pyroblast using 2 cards. And now Ollie going to attempt to Spell Pierce this show and tell, presumably.
Maybe not. There's Gilded Drake. When Gilded Drake comes into play, exchange control of Gilded Drake for target creature your opponent controls or sacrifice Gilded Drake. So basically what's going to happen is they're going to do the old switcheroo. Ollie is going to surgically extract Force of Will right now.
Which is pretty nice to respond to your opponent paying 7 when they're at 7 with that.
So yeah, Todd is going to draw 7 cards before the exchange happens.
And it's just getting those forces out of the deck significantly decreases the value of Grizzlebrand in play.
Yes.
I mean, one of the reasons that Grizzlebrand is so strong is you can just point at them and then find free counterspells.
So if Ollie has some sort of... okay, he's going to go get a fetch land, go to 6. If Ollie has a Bolt to be able to take care of this Gilded Drake that's about to be switched over, He can just attack Todd for the win, assuming... I mean, Todd's drawing 7 cards, so anything can happen, I suppose, but...
Alright, so with 7 new cards, Todd may be able to find something to get him out of this, but the Gilded Drake is pretty strong against Reanimator decks.
It sure is.
You know, Michael Jacob earlier was talking to Nick Spagnuolo and said, "I'm not doing too good." I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, I cast a Show and Tell, and I put an Emrakul into play, and my opponent put a Gilded Drake into play."
Yep, that's exactly right. So one of the cards Todd drew was Submerge. So it's possible he can submerge the Gristlebrand before exchange of... either before or after exchange of control. If it's before, I believe the trigger...
Gilded Drake gets sacrificed.
Yeah, Gilded Drake gets sacrificed. But if he waits until afterwards, he gets to keep the Gilded Drake. He's going to do it in response, though, to make the Gilded Drake go away entirely. Or attempt to.
Seems reasonable enough.
Yep. So he drew 7. That was a very good Submerge. Ollie with 1 card left in hand. It's a Spell Pierce. And he plays Delver of Secrets.
Yeah, and...
representing a 2-turn clock if he can flip it next turn.
It's much better for Todd to have made sure that the Gilded Drake died, because if he used Submerge after the Gilded Drake trigger resolved, then he'd allow Ollie to draw a card.
Yes.
With the Gristlebrand. An important distinction there.
Entomb is going to get Spell Pierced by the very last spell in Ollie's hand. Ollie's at the mercy of Todd, who has 6 cards remaining, one of which is a Gristlebrand, one of which is a Show and Tell, one of which is an Entomb, or Exhume, I'm sorry, one of which is a Brainstorm with 2 fetch lands. He has many, many options. End of turn, he's going to play Brainstorm, finding another Gristlebrand, and 2 lands.
Yeah, gonna
Put
at least one of these Gristleprands back on top.
Yep.
And another Show and Tell.
Likely going to be a Show and Tell here.
City of Traders will die with its trigger on.
Yep.
And Gristlebrand comes down.
Going to be pretty difficult for Ollie to deal with this Gristlebrand again.
Ollie is looking like his back's against the wall here.
We have a member of the Todd Anderson fan club in the back here who's cheering.
Todd Anderson's wife.
Todd Anderson's wife,
is,
Callie.
watching the stream
SCG
right now.
Open champion.
Yes.
Callie.
Callie Anderson, Star City Open champion, playing a mono green elf deck, I believe. Yeah.
Todd Anderson, the Andersons, I suppose, known for their mono green decks. Todd with the famous Bellowing Tangleworm deck that stomped its way to 2 top 8s, right?
Multiple top 8s. It was the best sword deck.
It was.
A new format starts. Try to play the best deck with Sword.
Oh my! He top decked another Gristlebrand.
Another Gristlebrand, or another Gilded Drake to take the Gristlebrand.
That's misers.
Rough for Todd. There was only 1 Gilded Drake remaining in Ollie's deck there.
That was the 1 out.
That was an actual 1-outer.
That's
Something
so
you don't
unfortunate.
see very often.
Every other card in Ollie's deck was a blank.
No, not every other card was a blank. He could have had some sort of Brainstorm chain. Or,
sure.
I mean, his deck is very capable of finding many things.
But the end result being the one thing that really was going to matter was going to be finding the Gilded Drake. Todd fetching down 5 here. Ollie did pay 7 life to draw 7 cards.
As one would expect. Now we have Ollie at this point, with Todd only at 5, can bolt Todd down to 2 at will, and then his Gristlebrand is going to gain him a bunch of life, and now Todd really has to try to Legend Rule this away, or put it up back on the top of his own library with a Submerge here. But
Todd has Entomb.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So he can Entomb, Exhume, Gristlebrand.
Yes, or he can
Entomb,
Exhume, Tidespout Tyrant.
Tidespout Tyrant is another really good option. Or he can Entomb, Exhume, Elishnor, or not Elishnor, I'm sorry, Blazing Archon. This is probably going to be Tidespout Tyrant, I would imagine, or a Gristlebrand. Did he take the Tidespout Tyrant out? Looks like it's going to be Gristlebrand.
Yeah, so he's
just
going
to Legend Rule it away. which is fine. It's quite respectable. He's got plenty more gas in the tank, so long as he can pay for all of these.
One more for a $10 draft. One more player to get up and start drafting right now.
Okay, so Brian Braun-Duin has lost his match this round, by the way.
Too bad.
Yep.
Mike Jacob has won. Jerry Thompson has lost.
Oh, look at this. So, as far as the game we're watching now,
Yep.
Ali has brainstormed, found a pair of lightning bolts now, and is going to be able to steal this game away with a pair of lightning bolts. So here's a Scalding Tarn and a Volcanic Island will be enough for Ali to take this game.
There's another Daze. Tapping Todd out. And then these are going to be lightning bolts.
Yeah, Bolt Todd, and then Scalding Tarn
Bolt
sacrifice, and it's another Bolt. And that's it.
Wow.
Ali Aintrazi able to take this match away from Todd. And with that one-outer, that Gilded Drake, very strong from Ali. Ali Aintrazi still doing very well. He's going into that round in 6th place. Now Todd falling down a bit. A lot of players with very different records will start playing each other in these